Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I've been given very strict instructions that I have, in fact, to stand around the podium rather than wander about. It's fantastic to see so many of you here this morning at the Crowne Plaza in Glasgow for what is, in my view, a really important conference. Some of you were here yesterday afternoon for our special general meeting, but a great many of you were not, and I think it's fabulous to see a differently framed audience as well. The theme for the conference today is evolution or extinction. It was Darwin who did not say it's the survival of the fittest. Somebody else said that. What Darwin said was, it is the species that is the most adaptable to change that survive. The most adaptable to change. I think from what you're going to hear throughout the day, change runs right through today's event. There is something for everybody in this conference. Tears, laughter. Quite seriously, though, just take what you want from the conference. There is absolutely something for everybody here. It really reflects the sort of exciting and daunting time that we're in. It is a time of, I think, unprecedented change. I think it was Bill Gates who said the now often repeated line of the extent to which the scale of change is overestimated in the first 2 or 3 years of a period and grossly underestimated in the last 5 or 6 years of a period. And I certainly think that we're heading towards the last 5 or 6 years of a period of change, and that we will underestimate the scale of what is going to happen by the time we get through the far end of that. We can be optimistic or we can be pessimistic. Personally, I'm optimistic, and I'll come back to that later. But each year, I'd just like to share with you some data which came back from the Ipsos Mori poll that we carry out around annually. The last survey, late last year, showed that only 51% of solicitors in Scotland were optimistic about the future. Only 51%. 45% were not optimistic. The mathematicians among you will have realized that 4% are missing. I think they were so pessimistic that they had their heads firmly down in the sand and didn't answer the question at all. But that really paints a picture which we need to address, which you need to address. The demographics are interesting, though. 70% of solicitors working in big firms were optimistic, but only half that number who work in the high street. Around 60% of trainees and employed solicitors are optimistic, but only 44% of partners and only 11% of senior partners. That's a truly horrifying statistic. Those working in legal aid have a set of different but equally pressing issues. They show real concern around the future, as do folk working in rural areas. And I think that's one of the many reasons why a conference like this, where what is frankly a very broad range of delegates, because it's a fantastically broad range that are here today, get the opportunity, A, to hear from our inspirational speakers, and I've not actually bored somebody yet. That's pretty quick even for me, but he is coming back, don't worry. And I think to hear what the messages are, which your very broad range of speakers are going to deliver, as well as getting a chance to discuss amongst yourselves. Legal aid. About 10 days ago, I had the privilege of addressing the annual Legal Aid Conference in Dunblane. The statistics around optimism and pessimism are worse for those working in legal aid, and worse still for those working in criminal legal aid. Only 4%, though, of membership consider that legal aid should not be, legal aid and the access and equality of access to justice, should not be at the highest priority in what the Law Society does. So 96% of the profession think that this is one of the key issues. And I find that hugely reassuring, because it is one of the reasons why the vast majority of us became lawyers in the first place, recognizing the unique and absolutely paramount place that law and solicitors have as a foundation on which the entirety of society is based. Society simply could not exist without solicitors, without a strong, a robust, a independent, a successful administrative justice system. It could not. We wouldn't have commercial lending. We wouldn't be able to leverage funds and investment on the back of property. Society, as we know it and recognize it, would not exist. I think this is a time when we should be talking very positively about the contribution which we make and the role that we play in society. It's very easy to confine our horizons to the immediate, pressing, and extremely troubling economic pressures that many of us are under. But there's a bigger picture at play here, and I personally am of the view that this is a time to be bold about asserting what we do, who we are, why we're here, and why it is of fundamental importance to society. Having now completely departed from the pre-prepared script which our excellent communications team gave me, I'll sort of segue back in for just a few more minutes, at least until your first speaker comes back into the room. There are changes going on right across the system. I've mentioned legal aid. I've mentioned what people feel about where we are just now. But we've got court closures. We've got a lot of cross-border activity in firm ownership. We've got a lot of people looking at different business structures without waiting for our licensed service provider regime to come in. People are already innovating their way through this period of change. And that's one of the things which the Scottish solicitors profession has as one of its hallmarks. In addition to the excellence, the independence, the integrity, innovation is the fourth key pillar. And that is what we are doing, and that is what we will do to innovate our way through this period of change. Some firms are looking internationally for some of their expansion opportunities. We had a marvellous session a couple of weeks ago with the UK and the Scottish governments and the development agencies, the UK Trade and Industry and Scottish Development International, just looking at some of the support structures which are already there, which firms can benefit from in looking forth of our own jurisdiction as part of their plans. I'm not long back from the American Bar Association and Canadian Bar Association conferences. I'm delighted to see our cousins from Ireland and Northern Ireland here. They were in either San Francisco and or Saskatoon. We do actually travel under the badge of the Celtic Fringe. The head of the Irish Bar, when speaking in Canada, introduced me as being practically a Scot. So you're very welcome here, gentlemen, and you are practically Scottish. But these opportunities are real. I've already put a couple of firms in direct touch with the UKTI-based organisations in the States, and they already have programmes of engagement built within literally 36 hours of initial contact. So there are real opportunities there. It would be inconceivable that I didn't mention independence and the independence referendum, which is coming next year. There is, of course, nothing like the threat of a Scottish independence referendum to generate a great deal more interest from the UK government in Scotland. But that's proving to be very valuable, and we're very confident that that will continue. We've had a huge amount of openness and enthusiasm for working with us as a profession to make sure that Scotland's legal services and jurisdiction are properly floated, and that's most welcome. But it is just next September that we will be making the most important decision for over 300 years. By the time of this next conference, that debate will be halfway through, and it will be febrile at least, I suspect. We as your society are very firmly and proudly non-partisan. We want to play a key role in that debate, really setting some of the questions and occupying some of that neutral territory which asks questions on both sides of the debate, and hopefully try and engage to bring forward some of the answers. We've issued a discussion paper, and we're hoping to follow that up in the late autumn. I would implore you, actually, to engage with that. Let us have your views. The paper's on our website. It's actually a very easy read, especially the first chunk of it. So please do let us have your views on that. It's very important. And the questions that are asked are the obvious ones: currency, position in Europe, cross-border regulation, and so forth. Economics, and then I think I will close because the main deal today has actually arrived back in the room. The difficulties in running firms and businesses in this climate are writ large. There are people in this room from sole practitioner firms, very large in-house organizations, small niche in-house organizations, public sector, private sector. The issues are real and they're right across the profession. They're different, but they're absolutely real. However, the number of solicitors is at an all-time high. There have never been more practicing solicitors. The number of unemployed solicitors is actually comparatively low. We're seeing increases in the number of traineeships which are available. Very welcome after the very serious situation of 2 or 3 years ago where numbers were radically depleted. Trainees and those entering the profession now are our future, and I think one of the challenges for us is to find ways of allowing that sector of the profession to help evolve the ways in which we work. I think that's vital, because we are going to be working differently. And the people who have the best intelligence around that are quite often that sector of the profession. Another thing which we're working on is to try and ensure we have as diverse a group as possible within the profession. We've carried out our first and most granular piece of work into looking at precisely how the profession is made up. And there'll be a suite of work on the back of that to make sure that we are as open and accessible to as broad a range from society as we possibly can be, whether that's pre-qualification and education stage or later on in careers. This, however, is your society. Lorna Jack, our Chief Executive, last night at the Special General Meeting presented our corporate plan for the next year. A great deal of work, thought, care, and research has gone into that. I would commend it to you. It's a simple and very easy read, but I think it's worth just being aware of what it is we are trying to do on your behalf, because it's your feedback which directs us in what we're going to do next. So please just take a few minutes and have a look at that on our website. Of course, part of the reason that we have careful planning and development is to ensure that our brand, the brand of the Scottish solicitor, remains absolutely trusted, respected, present, and valued. And I think that, if I can leave you with that thought, is really one of the things which we should try and get out of today. I hope you enjoy your conference. I'd like to thank everybody who's turned up to be here, but all of our speakers and moderators throughout the session. I'll speak to you again far more briefly at the close of the day, but in the meantime, I very much hope that you enjoy your conference and take as much from it as you possibly can. Thank you.